At the moment, we're all volunteers. There's a core team of 4 of us really that are giving everything to this. And it's not easy being a startup.
No.
But I think, we have something that will make the world a better place.
Welcome to Island Influencers, where we share stories of successful business owners, experienced professionals, entrepreneurs, and community leaders based or with influence in the Isle of Man. This podcast is brought to you by Thornton Chartered Financial Planners, because great financial planning has the power to change your life. Now here's your host, Sharon Sutton.
This week I'm thrilled to introduce Island influencer Cath Robertshaw, Chief Operating Officer, Eyesea, a non-profit organisation with a mission to map global pollution and maritime hazards. Born in Wales, yes, she's a big rugby fan, Cath grew up in South Africa, where her love for the ocean and beaches blossomed. After returning to the UK for her studies and teacher training, she embarked on an incredible journey to Asia. There she spent years working, teaching and raising her 3 boys in the vibrant cities of Shanghai and Singapore. We delve into her personal experiences and emotions on returning to the Isle of Man for the second time after 15 years in Singapore. We explore Cath and her team's pioneering efforts with the Eyesea app, harnessing technology to monitor and reduce marine and land pollution. Listen to the end to hear all about Cath's favourite trip ever story. So let's just say she's a lifesaver in more than one way. Please join me in welcoming Cath Robertshaw, Island Influencer, episode 114. Welcome to Island Influencers and my guest. This week I'm delighted to welcome Cath Robertshaw from Eyesea. So welcome to the show, and thank you so much for agreeing to come and record with me today on such a beautiful day in St John's.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. Well, thanks for coming and finding us opposite Uncle Bob. I think we discovered earlier, didn't we?
We did.
It's a small place, the Isle of Man, isn't it?
It is. That's something to be thankful for, really.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So for the benefit of our listeners, I'd love to hear all about you, where you've come from, your connection to the Isle of Man both times, and just to see where you've got to so far, and of course what lies ahead. So,
yep. Sure.
Over to you.
Well, how far back do you want to go? I mean, I was born in Wales.
Yes.
So clearly I'm a passionate Welsh rugby fan.
Not a Wrexham supporter.
No. We then moved as a family. My mum and dad were both teachers. So
right.
We moved out. They took, a real big jump actually in those days. And we moved from Woodbridge in Suffolk, where they were teaching at Woodbridge College. We moved all the way over to South Africa. And they taught at multiracial church schools, both in Kearsley College, which is sort of between Hillcrest, which is between Pinetown and Durban. And then we came back to the Isle of Man for a brief stint. My grandfather, who actually set up St John's Mill, wasn't very well.
Right. So
they came back. Mum couldn't bear to be so many miles away, which is obviously understandable. My grandfather was amazing, a real entrepreneur. He had St John's Mill. He also developed the squash courts and the views, as it was in Onken. And all the family really were here apart from us.
Okay.
But Mum and Dad didn't settle. Dad's a real adventurer. So we went back to South Africa, but this time we went to the Cape to another multiracial church school. And my mum taught at Diocesan School for Girls and my dad taught at St Andrews. And then they brought me back here to run Gradle Glen, which was the third project that my grandfather had developed and built. And it was Mum and Dad's turn for the family, to sort of rely on them, and they were running that. So we came back. I joined the Buchan, spent 2 really interesting years there. Hadn't been to an all-girls school really like that before. Loved it. Was very different. I mean, I think I was not very streetwise compared to some of the girls here. South Africa seemed to be about at least 6 years behind. And then Dad was teaching at King William's College. So I moved over to there for my A-levels. So that's sort of my connection to the Isle of Man.
Yeah, because it must have become... When did it come co-ed? Quite a bit before you joined?
Yeah, it would actually... My year was the first year that they joined. So our Buchan was split then in two. Yeah. And I was amongst few that stayed to do the GCSEs at the Buchan.
Right, okay.
And then half the cohort went over to King William's College. Sorry, I shouldn't.
No, everybody it's known as King Bill's, right?
It is. And
super.
It's a fantastic school, and we had, we were really happy there. My son, when we came back from Singapore, was there for a couple of years as well. He set a record for the Derby Haven and was the youngest to ever win it.
Oh, yes. Really? How old was he when he won it?
He was in upper fifths, so he
16.
was 16.
Yeah. Yeah, my son wanted to do it last year, but I think he had his DT exam on the same time. I know,
yeah,
so he couldn't do
awkward.
It. So this year, maybe. Yeah. So how? What happened? You went on to university from King Bill's.
I did. Yeah, I went to Bangor University and then on to Leicester University, where I did my PGCE and education degree, and then, of course, it was love that brought me back to the Isle of Man. So I'd met a certain young man who's called Cath Robertshaw. And, he blew my little socks off and fell head over heels. So I'd been teaching actually in the Midlands.
So you qualified in English, right?
Yes, I did.
Okay,
yeah,
and then went to do your teacher's training.
Yeah, and I spent about 5 years in Denston College in Staffordshire, which is really close to Alton Towers, and then came back and got a job at QE2, started at the same time as the magnificent Sue Moore, who's actually sadly obviously just left last year, I think it was.
Yeah, she did.
So she had an amazing career there. And then I moved, to be with Mark, and he promptly got a job in Singapore, which flung us halfway across the world.
Oh, how rude.
I know. He actually asked me to marry him before he knew whether or not he'd got the job, which was nice. So he wanted me either way. And then I followed him out afterwards. So I did almost a full year, and then my lovely mother stepped in. So from being taught by Miss Walters, all the students then had to get used to Mrs. Walters, because I jetted off with my husband.
That's funny.
And most of my exam years had gone on to revision, so it wasn't too bad, and Mum picked up my slack.
Good
and
old
allowed
Mum.
me to go early, and Sue Moore was just fantastic in that she was just so understanding about the throes and hearts of passion and longing and all the rest of it. And
sure.
I was miserable without him, so
Oh,
it worked really well.
So what was it like in Singapore? A bit of a change from here, huh?
It was, yeah. It's incredible. We kind of did it in the right order because we were in Asia, so we did about about 4 years in Singapore initially, and then we did 2.5 years in Shanghai. And I'm glad we were in Singapore first, because it's a very easy place to sort of dip your toe in the Asian waters, as it were.
Is that because of the long history with it being part of the British
exactly everybody everybody speaks English,
okay, that's handy.
or Singlish la is how they refer to it. It's sort of English with a weird accent, and it's just such a beautifully multicultural place.
Yes.
And it's an extremely exceptionally well organised island. Obviously it's about the same size as the Isle of Man, but there's sort of 4 million people living there. So it's very high rise, but they've got really beautiful areas that they've kept very natural.
What was the climate like for you?
Like walking into a hot shower room.
Which is okay if you like hot shower rooms. If you don't,
But it's the sort of the steam and the humidity hit you in the face.
Right.
So it's consistently about 32, 33 degrees.
Yeah.
And then it's either boiling hot and sunny, or it's sort of pouring with rain and thunderstorms. There's kind of no in between, really.
So you had one of your sons out there?
Yeah, I had my eldest out there initially, and then took him to to Shanghai. We moved when he was 5 weeks old, which was a real shock.
I was going to say, but you went through the whole time of your pregnancy in Singapore in like a hot shower.
Very hot. Yes.
Oh my goodness.
So
hero.
Oh, thank you. And then it's the only time I haven't really worked. I learned how to be a mum, which wasn't easy in a country like that, so far from home.
Yes.
And I also learned Chinese, partly through necessity, partly through to converse. And when I say I learned Chinese, I learned how to get along.
Right.
Because nobody at that point really was speaking English. Maybe in the offices, my husband was lazier and not good with languages, so he didn't. But, you know, anybody else you'd meet, I mean, it was the sort of time, we were there at a perfect time when it was still really China and Shanghai, and you'd sort of cross the street if you saw another foreigner just to have a chat and say, where are you from? Are you visiting? Are you living here?
Yeah, sure.
And it was a really eye-opening time before they unfortunately demolished all the beautiful shop houses, because they do things very differently there. So there were rows of children's clothes and rows of wedding shops, and it was all together. But those have all gone in place of the big malls where you could kind of be anywhere in the world, really.
Couldn't you just? Well, excuse my ignorance, but when you say Chinese, do you mean, was it Mandarin?
Mandarin, yes.
Yeah, okay, because Cantonese is
that's Hong Kong.
Yeah, okay.
That's very different. And I sort of could look at the pinyin a little bit. I fell in love with the characters, but it's so complicated, but just, I mean, it's art. It's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah. Do you still keep your hand in?
一点点，可是现在我忘了。
Amazing.
Which means a little if I can, but right now I've forgotten most.
Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah. So when you've been to Shanghai, that was, how long did you stay there?
We were there about 2.5 years. I went there when my eldest was 5 weeks old, and then I returned to Shanghai about 5 or 6 weeks before my middle son was born. I've got 3 boys, so they have actually all been born in Singapore. So that's quite a cool thing, I think, to have in your driving license here on the Isle of Man, like born in Singapore. They quite like that.
That's very cool. Yeah, great. So after Singapore, where did you go next? Was it back here?
Yes, we moved back here just over 10 years ago now, in sort of July 2013. It was actually, I was really looking forward to coming back. I'd left with 2 suitcases. Mark had said we'll be there for a year, potentially 2, and sort of 15 plus years had gone by. So I was ready to come back, and I think that's a really amazing place about the Isle of Man, or the amazing thing, about the Isle of Man, is that it's a real safety net, and it gives you the chance to explore, because not much changes, so you know that when you leave, when you come back, it's reassuringly similar in lots of ways. Not to say that it doesn't obviously embrace innovation and change and move forward. I didn't mean it like that, but just from more, I suppose, my family point of view, having supportive family.
Yeah. And how about stuff? How many containers did you bring back?
That's quite a lot. I think we had a 20-foot container in the end. Yeah, a lot of clutter. Mark was delighted. I'm a bit of a hoarder, I guess. I don't like throwing things away. I've got letters from my nan and my parents and everything, and they're really special to me. And he's like, junk, throw it away. So I have to watch him. But obviously when you move from countries, you do have to have a clear out. So...
Yeah,
exactly.
So not as bad as it could have been. It was only one 20-foot container. That's not too bad.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So what happened next?
So we ended up here on the island, and it was difficult, I guess, because it felt very much out of the blue. My dad passed away 6 weeks after we got back.
Oh my God, had he been sick? Had he been ill? Sorry,
he'd been unwell. Yeah. But no one seemed to know quite what was going on.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That must have been a real shock.
Yeah, it was. He had something called amyloidosis, which is really quite rare, and I won't go into that. Obviously, it was just a really, really sad time for the family.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And it made me really angry, actually, because we'd just come back, and I was so looking forward to, he was an incredible man, my dad, and he was... He'd always been like the careers master wherever he'd gone. He was so good at directing kids, giving them purpose, picking them up when they were down and helping that sort of way. And I knew what an amazing influence, he'd have on the boys. So to have that sort of snatched away was really, really hard.
Sad. I mean, what a great gift he had, though.
Yeah, he did. He influenced a lot of people, both in South Africa, in the UK, and obviously he taught for a long time at King William's as well.
Oh, sad.
Yeah. So it was just hard finding my feet then, because everything about the Isle of Man, reminded me of Dad then. So it was wonderful that we were here and we'd moved close, because it would have been hard being apart from mum, and being so far away in Singapore. But yeah, it was a difficult start.
So you had to go through the sad death of your father. Do you have any siblings here that were around that?
Yes, yeah. Tom is a great support. My brother Tom actually lives not far from Loughborough. A big reason, I think, that all three of my boys two of my boys have gone to Loughborough. My youngest, it's his first choice. He's just doing A-levels at QE2 right now.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And he's fantastic. He's been a real strength, I know, to my mum and also to me.
Yeah.
And I guess he's the man of our family now. And, I've got such a close relationship with the family, and my family, like Mark, my husband and everything, we all get on really well. So it's lovely. I've got aunt and uncle here.
Yeah, and that's very blessed, that is. Yeah.
And everyone here loves the island. Obviously, my mum has always given to Save the Children. Mm-hmm. That was obviously a really sad sort of end, and that's not going ahead anymore. So she's now at RNLI, the Royal Lifeboat Institute, etc. Yes. And she volunteers there.
Oh, gosh.
But she was on the committee. She started like the Festival of Trees and that sort of thing.
Oh,
and my Auntie Cal's always been, or used to give a lot of time and energy to hospice. And now that Uncle Bob is not at Tynwald Mills anymore, he's doing a lot with the wildlife birds and the bird sanctuaries.
We see him often. He's our landlord. Yeah. Well, one of them. Trustees.
Exactly. So I'm in a family that sort of always gives back. So Eyesea was an opportunity for me to do the same.
Yeah. So how did you come up with the concept?
It wasn't my concept. That was Graham, the poet and the dreamer. He was living sort of at Greece at the time, has been in maritime industry for a long time. And I guess, the preconception and the preconceived notions about what to expect in Greece. He was born in New Zealand, spent a lot of time in Singapore as well. And, was just sort of really taken aback, I guess, about how bad things had got.
The pollution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And basically he had a chat with another maritime sort of seafarer, Oliver Schwartz of Chartworld, and between them they both decided there was a lot more that could be done, and also a lot more that the maritime industry could do to ensure that basically I think that's where the eyes of the ocean are, really, the seafarers. It's all very well for us to be able to say, well, there's this much plastic going into the ocean every day, and, there's the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, etc., which I think a lot of people mistakenly think is like an island of plastic that you could sort of moor a boat on and sort of sit on and sunbathe and walk around on. And it's actually not like that. It's very much blue water. And the problem with plastics once they get into the ocean is they start to drop below the surface. So initially they'll float, and then as years pass, they drop down below the surface, and then they start to slowly, very, very slowly break up. And when they become the microplastics, that's obviously really dangerous because it's very hard to collect, and they get into the food sources and the natural food chains, which in turn affects species and obviously humans.
Yeah, that all sounds a bit grim.
Yeah, it is. Sorry, bit of a change in direction. Yeah. But that is one of the things I'd like to say. I see we're very, very positive. We're not ever about sort of naming and shaming people. We're about these are the things that are happening, and we're coming up with solutions.
Yeah, what we're going to do about it.
And
why
problems.
The Isle of Man as it was set up?
We had the launch here. We're actually incorporated in New Zealand, but the launch was here. I'm here. I'm the COO. And I think what's wonderful about the Isle of Man is it's the only worldwide nation biosphere, which is not only exciting, it's a real accolade. And it also shows how many people there are here that really, really care. So it's been a great place for us to initially, when we were we've had two versions of the app. So we launched the first version here back in July 2020. Seems like a long time ago. And since then, we've actually redeveloped the app with help of a local, they're a global shipping company, but very much much I've been dependent on Bernard Schulte Ship Management,
Right.
David Furnival. They have a team of their own app designers, Marry Apps, and they've helped us build. Yes, they're here on the Isle of Man. Yes.
Oh, my word. So explain for the benefit of our listeners how what Eyesea is,
Yep.
and how it works.
Okay. Well, we are basically, Eyesea is two platforms. The first platform is a mobile device that you download an app for free from Google Play or Apple Store. Basically, it's just a really, really simple way for people to take pictures of what they're seeing when there's something there that shouldn't be there, be it pollution, be it an oil spill, be it a ghost fishing net that's washed up, whatever it is. It's a really, really easy way to report that to our database.
And does it provide like a, I don't know, what 3 words location on the pollution?
Well, basically it gives a geotag and a timestamp, and an image, so we know what it is, exactly where it is, and when that photo was taken.
Oh, very important, especially if it's on the tide and it's going to go in a different direction based on
exactly. And then we have overlays that we can use on the app, so that if it is in the water, we can put in wind, tide, weather, currents, and that sort of thing, and see where it may end up, and watch where it travels, or indeed alert people.
Right.
And then I think you can't really measure what you can't see. So having data and being able to show communities and working out where problem areas are and where hotspots are. Again, none of this is to make people look bad, or because there's points on the Isle of Man and we're a UNESCO biosphere, that's a bad thing. Actually, the reverse is happening, because people are realising pollution is all over the world. And actually, we can't ignore it anymore. We need to do something positive about it.
We're all connected by the sea.
Exactly. And on top of that, people are taking stands and saying, right, well, this is what our beach looks like. So we're going to use the Eyesea app, and we're going to get organised beach clean. And we're going to find, because the great thing about the Eyesea app is you can take lots of data and then everybody can look at it. So you have 2 sections to show what you've done, which is my section. And then there's an all section, which shows you all the rubbish in your local area and globally. So it's a really good incentive for incredible groups like Plastic Busters with Jaime Amida and with Beach Buddies with Bill Dale, to actually know where the
problem
plan,
areas are.
To plan the next cleanup.
That's quite a decent strategic tool for them, I should have thought.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Exactly.
We actually realised before we met today that we met Sunday. Because you were on the Beach Buddies clean on the railway lines.
And you were on a very cool looking bike.
I was on a very cool looking e-bike, because it's easier to go up hills on. So great. That's wonderful that those 2 charities, and I'm sure there's more that you collaborate with, or I don't know, but
yes, to be honest, obviously I'm focusing a little bit on the Isle of Man, but this has happened globally, and we're a not-for-profit, so we rely on members, which have mainly been maritime. We have some fantastic members here on the Isle of Man.
I'm sure.
Everyone from BSM that I mentioned earlier to our first CSP, ATLA. We have Isle of Man Maritime, have been fantastic. The Isle of Man Ship Registry, they're doing more and above and beyond. And really what you've got is like a tool to show what's going on and help other people devise cleanups and where you should go to maximise your impact.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I suppose, is the app itself and the mobile tool. Everybody now carries a mobile phone, whether you're 8 or 80, really, you've got one in your pocket. And sometimes you come across things where, you don't have the right equipment, or if I'm talking to people, to kids in schools, I can't really say, please pick up any rubbish that you see, because obviously unfortunately, you can see lots of things that you wouldn't want your children to touch, be it needles or syringes or, or just rubbish, tissues and things that obviously you wouldn't want without gloves or protection.
Yeah, sure.
So, but what you can do very simply is take a photo. And then that's where, once you have the photo, we have that data. We know what you're seeing, what it looks like and where it is. And that helps then the second side of Eyesea, which is the dashboard that is almost finished. And that's where the analytics come in, because we're very much looking to close the loop with everything. So the analytics, and this is why it's important, I guess, to use Eyesea, at this time where so many companies are, obviously CSR is very high on their agendas, ESG, being sustainable, doing all the right things. There's also quite a lot of greenwashing going on, and I would dare to say there's quite a lot of just simple box ticking to make sure it looks like you're doing the right thing.
Oh yes, Well, we're involved in financial services, and greenwashing is high on the agenda to avoid.
Yeah, well, Eyesea gives you actually a platform within the mobile app. You can, if you're a member or a partner, we can write down your organisation, and then you can see that people are apping. Using the app to map. So you could see how many, for example, plastic busters have gone out and mapped and where they're mapping, or just local people. You can either come in under your own name and then an organisation, or you don't have to choose an organisation. But what that does is then it shows on the app how many points have been collected and how many of the points have been recovered.
That's amazing.
So it's, it's really, really useful.
Sounds very innovative, which is probably why you're up for an innovation prize. Is that right?
Oh, I'm hoping, yes.
So
absolutely.
What's that all about?
Well, the Innovation Challenge is being run by Digital Isle of Man, and Cath Robertshaw has started this, I think, a couple of years ago, to much success. So this year is bigger and better, I believe, than ever.
Sounds like the sort of good idea that Kurt would have. He's a previous guest on the podcast, actually.
Okay, yes. I'm sure you've had fantastic people that you've talked to. So I think the concept is now that there's 3 different, so we're in the clean tech category. And really we're showcasing green tech. So our analytics then, not only on the app will you be able to see how many points have been recovered and collected, we can then use the analytics. And this is where authorities and ports and governments actually really need to be excited, because we've evolved and sort of we are trying to revolutionize and digitalize pollution waste management. So our platform now is going to really help, because we can automate reports. When we get reports coming in, and this is an example that has happened on the Isle of Man just recently, there was a ghost fishing net that had washed up on Fort Island, and it was huge. It was too big for one person to carry. And, obviously that can cause a lot of issues. If it gets back into the water, it's going to damage, seaweeds and corals and animals.
Propellers.
And then I was going to say, and if it gets caught in a propeller, that causes thousands. So we saw it on the app because we were alerted, and then we were able to alert Kurt, who alerted the authorities. And it was the first sort of time we'd had government interventions, if you know what I mean.
That's amazing. Yeah.
So they collected that, and then again we saw there was some drums on the island that we don't really know what was in them, to be honest.
Oil drums type thing.
They were full of some sort of a liquid. Big, huge, big blue drums, and it was down on a beach, so it was very hard to get to.
Oh gosh.
And nobody could obviously move them, and they'd been there a long time. And again, it came through the Eyesea app, so we got hold of the authorities, and they've been there for years, and about 3 days after we've reported them, they've now been removed. So, it's fantastic, because you don't know what's in there. You don't know what's going to happen. So it's lovely to see the sort of the link is being closed and the loop is being closed.
Sure.
And then
just to clarify,
that's okay.
Whilst you're concentrating on beach and sea pollution,
yep.
If I'm right in understanding, this app can be used on land anywhere too. So if you see fly tipping, for example,
absolutely,
you can actually
that helped a lot at St John's. Actually, I'd done a lot of mapping the night before, because I think when you're an amazing group like the Beachbody volunteers are, and you want to do as much as you can to make an area better, then if you know exactly where to go, that's really, really helpful.
Yes.
So by mapping earlier, I'd been able to send Bill the results, and he'd been able to streamline and sort of send and direct people to where the hotspots were,
that's just
rather
awesome.
than them sort of aimlessly wandering around and maybe not having as much luck.
Very cool. Very cool.
So, and then, with the analytics, we've now, just taken the next level step. So I tend to try not to get too involved in this because I'm not very technically minded, but we have Marius and Natasha on our team who are both absolutely fantastic.
Oh, that's great. I mean, that's not your job. Your job's
yes. But what is wonderful is that there are so many people that want to help. So we've got phenomenal tech partners. So from Pushologies that are here on the Isle of Man, who are sort of going to embed their technology into our app as an alerting tool. Yeah. They do incredibly smart things with push notifications, to Grundo that give us satellite images and spectrometry. And Microsoft worked with us. They said it was one of their quickest to fill hackathons ever. So they have a lovely concept where their employees can choose something really fun to work on, or something that's meaningful or close to their hearts. And they take a 3-day to focus on something really small, like a startup like we were. And they gave us their time and their expertise. And they created this amazing computer learning sort of vision that we're now using for the analytical platform.
That all sounds totally amazing.
Yeah. And, we've worked with some other big companies that have actually used our data to teach their computer vision learning, because you need sort of a ridiculous amount of times that you're looking and showing a computer a plastic bottle in its various forms so it knows what it is. So that leads us on again to the analytical side, because then when people are taking a simple photo on beaches or near a river or in a park or wherever it might be, all of that information is being put into our system and it can be broken down. And it's not far before I'm sure that we're going to see patterns about, okay, on the Isle of Man, are we always seeing, I better not say anything that's going to annoy somebody, but a certain type of takeaway cup or a certain type of takeaway container?
Oh, I think you would know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah.
The wrappers might be red.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
you could put a barcode on to prove who's bought it.
Exactly. Well, there are really clever things going on like that now. But I think what's important then, and I know this is very much a chicken and an egg sort of conversation, but perhaps if we've got all the information and we can say, look, there is a problem, whether it's on the Isle of Man or whether it's in Chile or whatever, and the problem is that, people are not disposing of your wrappers properly, there are conversations to be had there. And obviously, is it, the marketing and the people that are selling the goods problem, or is it the consumer that are not throwing it away? But whichever it is, we're hoping to highlight in a very positive way the good that we're doing, so that actually, again, it's like for fishermen, if a net goes overboard, accidents happen. But if you've got to fill in a massive form from the IMO, which is the authority that governs the seas, and if a coffee cup blows over or, anything happens, you've got form after form to fill in. How much simpler would the process be if you could drop a pin, or if you can safely do so, take a quick photo, because then we have the evidence. And what that's going to mean is that when the dashboard is ready, we're hoping that ports authorities, local councils and environmental groups can geofence and ring areas that are their concern, that maybe they're in charge of. And what we've seen happening from conversations on the Isle of Man and conversations with people like the Port of Barcelona is that they really want to obviously keep their area good, but they have and clean. But they have to take every phone call and investigate every phone call. Very, very similar actually to here on the Isle of Man, you know, for DEFRA reports, for local council reports. If you get a phone call, you have to go and find it. But what tends to happen is, you know, people say, hi, is that so-and-so? And they're like, yes, it is. How can we help you? Well, I can see something in the water or in the river. Okay, that's great. What is it? Don't know, not sure, can't tell. Okay, so where are you? We're sort of somewhere between point A and point B. And then it's up to that, you know, authority or port or whatever it is to then go and find that pollution and see what the problem is. And it's really difficult. It's a bit of a wild goose chase. It takes a lot of time, a lot of hours, a lot of manpower. And if you had an instant alert and you could say to that person on the beach, okay, great, can you just open the Eyesea app, take an instant picture, they would get a live report. They could see where it is, what they would need, if they need help and volunteers, if they need to alert the public to avoid the area, and or if they need help and what people could bring. So it's sort of automating all of that process, cutting out the emails, the long-winded phone calls, the long-winded searches, and it's streamlining everything and digitalizing it, which is phenomenally important.
I mean, it's got the potential to be completely astonishing, really.
Yeah, I think it can help a lot of people. And I think what's interesting, I mean, like with the Isle of Man, we have such a fantastic community of people and we are very, very blessed. But there obviously are communities in India and in Chile and in Brazil, etc., who don't have the same sorts of infrastructure, I guess, in place. So what would be amazing from an Isle of Man perspective is, as a small island, where we can actually test out exactly how to maximize the potential of Eyesea and how digitalizing, you know, pollution and waste platform, you know, can really impact a community. This would be an amazing thing for the Isle of Man to then say, well, look, we've embraced this, we are using this, and actually we're leading the way for other island communities or communities that maybe don't have this infrastructure in place. And it, you know, they're really championing a cause that could then have a real knock-on effect for communities that don't have what we have to offer, because they've paved the way and they can share this message. And then obviously we can get in touch and share the tech.
Sounds like an innovation sandbox, in effect.
Hopefully, yes.
Yeah.
And I think the Isle of Man is just such a great platform, you know, like I can't even tell you how fantastic the Innovation Challenge has been. I would hugely recommend it to anybody that's, you know, coming up with brilliant solutions.
When will you know?
The finale is in the 13th of June. And so what's happened since, so we sort of applied, obviously. We were selected as finalists. And then we've been given...
how many other finalists are there, sorry?
I think there's about 12. Wow. So there's an AI section, there's clean tech that we are, and there is another digital section.
Amazing.
I sound a bit vague there. Sorry.
It's all right. This podcast will be going out post that, so you'll be able to check on Google and see what the results are. So good luck.
Thank you. Yes. Keeping everything crossed. But I think that's what I was going to say. I think we very much feel like winners no matter what, in that the Isle of Man has given us this platform. And because we're in the Innovation Challenge, we've had incredible meetings. And with the Isle of Man being forward thinking, and it's very easy to pick up a phone and talk to people, the reaction has been incredible. So we've had the Department for Enterprise, Kiri Guberman, has just sort of, I went to see her, I had a meeting, met my buddy mentor, Jerome Watts, who I think you've also interviewed. Jerome.
Yes, a lovely guest on our podcast.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
A little while ago, brilliant. Yeah,
he's
so inspiring.
Exactly. So he is the perfect fit for our buddy mentor. He's really, really interesting. What he's doing is really interesting.
It's a similar sort of space, really.
Yeah, exactly. So we couldn't have asked for a better buddy mentor. And then, we made sort of a couple of emails and a phone call, and I've had a meeting already with, the chief minister. And there's not a lot of places that you could say that.
There aren't.
And the Department for Enterprise, I've had meetings with DEFRA, with fantastic Taylor Bridgens. She's the pollution monitoring. She does water monitoring. She does the rivers. And then David Guberman, who does the harbours and the 12-mile radius of water. So it's things like that. We could ring fence and geofence that, and then use spectrometry and satellite imagery and join the dots really, really quickly. And then on top of that, give automated reports to show the good work that people on the island are doing. And fabulous. I think that's sometimes what you need in this day and age. It's, it's fantastic that people want to make a difference, and we are giving them the reports and the proof and the evidence to show what they're doing. So I really hope that a lot of companies on island, will have come to the innovation ceremony. Obviously that will be, the finale is past, as you've said, this won't be on the air then. Yeah. But hopefully there's a lot of companies that might be interested in learning more about Eyesea. Obviously, we're very much hoping, at the moment, we're all volunteers. There's a core team of 4 of us, really, that are giving everything to this. And it's not easy being a startup.
No.
But I think, we have something that will make the world a better place, if I don't sound too melodramatic. And I think that...
I don't think you can get melodramatic about saving the world, can you?
Yeah, so, through the oceans and then, whatever we can do. We've actually got incredible ambassadors all across the world. We've got about 85 ambassadors at the moment.
Amazing.
Quite a few here on the Isle of Man who are brilliant. And then we've got at sea ambassadors, and I think it was lovely to see the seafarers so excited that they were getting involved in something, because usually they were seen as the pirates of the sea.
Yes.
And a lot of people think it's them that's causing the pollution, and that actually couldn't be further from the truth. They love the ocean, they work there, they live there, they're really respectful, and the IMO has rules and regulations that, would prevent them from doing anything like they used to do in the very olden days.
So the IMO, the International Maritime Organization?
Yeah. So they sort of set the rules and stuff.
Okay.
So they actually said to us, this is amazing, Eyesea is wonderful, can you please have a platform for us? So we started the Eyesea ambassadors, and they aren't the true eyes of the ocean, so they really do see what's going on.
Amazing.
Always safety first, obviously.
Yeah.
But
okay. Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that amazing story. It's super.
Thank you.
If you don't mind, I'd like to move on.
Of course.
And I'd like to ask you, because this isn't my day job being a podcaster, obviously, but my day job is a financial planner, and I like to ask my guests, what your earliest memories of money were for you, and the first time you were exposed. How was money growing up?
Right. I think my first sort of instance of that and really understanding was my nan, actually. She set up a post office account for us when we were very young. Mum and Dad always gave us pocket money, but Nan, she'd give us treats and notes for birthdays and Christmas, and it's tucked into what are the little Easter eggs with the runny filling?
Oh, Cadbury's cream eggs.
Yes, cream eggs, that's it. But then she
could
would
you eat
also...
one now? I don't think I could.
Not on a hot day like this. I think I'd rather have frozen margarita or something.
I'm with you.
It's cocktail time. But but she, really instilled in us that we had this post office account, and it was, it would really grow. And she had 6 grandchildren, and she would just, drop her coins and pennies in each of our jars, and then at the end of the week she'd take that to the post office. And as a very young child, it was really exciting, that. And then South Africa, I guess, it was like having coins in my hand and running to the local penny sweets.
Very different
things.
there.
Yeah.
Yes.
To be honest, I could probably still do with some help now organising my money. But right now, obviously, I'm a volunteer, so that's quite simple.
But you must have had good discipline around it, if that's the case. You can't.
Yeah. And obviously, and try to instill in our boys. I think, it's a very what's the word? Fast-paced, I suppose, society. And
you don't see money anymore, do you?
No, you don't. And I think that's
today,
the danger, actually, because, my boys, they have their savings account, but then they can buy things on their phones and online, and it maybe doesn't feel real. No. So, we've just definitely got to keep an eye, on them, because,
It's definitely an educate at home piece. In the absence of much mainstream personal finance education.
Yeah, and there's some really interesting, just to give other people in the Innovation Challenge a plug, there's a few that are dealing with finances and making that friendly from an early age. So that's something that you might want to look into, which would actually tick your boxes. So there you can find all the information about all the innovation finalists, as was, because obviously it will have passed. It's a weird thought.
Yes.
Hopefully we've done well.
Yes.
But if anyone is interested, there's some really, really interesting ideas going on in the space.
A look at it. We'll put a link into the show notes for that as well.
Perfect.
Well, so can you define what being rich or wealthy means to you?
It's, for me, wealth is health, to be honest. I had a scare going back into 2018. At the end of 2018, I was diagnosed at 47 with breast cancer.
Oh, my goodness.
And it's a horrible thing. You hear cancer and your mind goes to suffering and losing hair and life never being the same. And, people I know are dealing with that all of the time. And there's been a breakthrough actually in this last week to do with breast cancer. So I'm really, really hopeful that we will start making breakthroughs. But it just brought everything into sharp perspective. And it was after that I got into Eyesea, because I really wanted to do something worthwhile. And everything that I thought was important melted away.
Yeah.
And
so you're in remission.
I am. Yeah.
Excellent.
5 years has passed.
And long may that continue.
Looking and hopefully looking fine. That sounds awful. Feeling fine.
You look great.
I was going to say looking and feeling fine. But
she looks great. She looks amazing. So
thank you. Yeah. So it was a stressful time, and it's amazing how you realise, part of our family is very religious, and I grew up both. My grandfather on my dad's side was a Presbyterian minister, and things like God and everything come into your mind. I've always talked to God, and I believe in God, but obviously terrible things happen, so I can't explain why those things aren't dealt with or answered, for some people, and, how wars are still going on right now as we sit here and have this chat. But, I think you can't take your money with you. You can't take your possessions with you. I read something recently that said that we go through life collecting junk for other people to solve, but to us they're treasures. And I told you already at the beginning that I'm a bit of a hoarder.
I know. I've just emptied my mum's house because she's gone into a residential
we talked
home.
About that. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so you're right.
It's
all
hard,
the stuff she's
it?
saved, and the photographs. I mean, when our kids get to that stage, it's going to be delete,
digital,
isn't it?
Yeah.
Really
I've
easy.
said to them, they hate it if I post any Facebook pictures and stuff, but
yes,
I'm like, I need it for the memories, and one day you will too. And they're like, no. And I said, you have to promise you're not allowed to delete my account when I'm gone. So at least those memories still pop up.
That's actually a digital asset, It
is.
I was we had a seminar here last week, and one of the points for the will making, what you should do is make a list of your digital assets. And one of those things was make sure you write down every digital asset that you have, whether the Facebook account or whatever, and what the login and password is.
Yeah, that's very true, actually. Yeah.
So they can delete it or not,
or
at least log into it. Yeah.
Yes.
Nobody
absolutely.
else can hack it either. Yes. So of all things you've done throughout your life so far, Cath, what's the one thing that's given you the most fulfillment, would you say?
Oh gosh, it's a big question for a mother. Obviously it's going to be my children.
Of course.
I am so proud of all three of them. It's quite a funny story. I always thought I'd have two, a boy and a girl, but I wouldn't change my boys. I would have loved a pink one, but it wasn't meant to be. And the first two, it's Joe and Jake. Joseph and Jacob were christened, and my husband's best friend sort of messaged to congratulate me finding that I was pregnant again, and said, well, you know it's going to be a boy and you may as well just be done with it and call it Jesus, because I had a Joseph and a Jacob already, and I had quite liked Joshua, but we went with Samuel. So you can see, I think, the Christian names coming through there.
Sure.
And so I think obviously being a mum and the way that my boys are today and the fine young men they've grown into is massively rewarding. Finding a gorgeous husband doesn't hurt either.
No.
And then being able to dedicate some time to Eyesea and being in a position for now that, you know, I can volunteer and give as much as I can. And I just think, you know, it is really important. I think one of the things about Eyesea is that so many people want to help, but they don't know where to start. And just by taking a simple photo.
Yeah, we'll definitely put the link to the app in the show notes. So
please, because we're also, because we're not for profit, we are giving back. Yeah. So we're sponsoring, and actually there's a lot of Manx supporters. The Isle of Man Ship Registry are helping on this, and that's the Lunar Story Foundation, and they're cleaning up the Versailles beaches. And you'll see if you looked at our LinkedIn pages, the differences that are being made. And we just provide them with basically the tools to collect. They've got an amazing, they've got about, I think it's something like 2,000 volunteers that they can call on for various things.
Oh, great.
And then now we've started helping him to close the loop again, because we didn't want to be in a position where we're helping all of this plastic to be collected without then looking to the next phase. And we want it to be, you know, properly taken care of. And obviously in India, that's more of a challenge.
Oh, yeah.
So we're making sure that now he's, you know, with our contributions, he's setting up a recycling, both for plastics, and he's also been given a lot of clothes that he's distributing among the poor.
Oh, right.
So it's really,
good.
It's really, really wonderful.
No, that's good to hear. That's good to hear.
And we have Chili, we have Romy, and she's actually set up her own recycling. And it's wonderful that people like this are really loving and championing Eyesea, because for them, it actually shows the really good work that they're doing.
And the practical outcomes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it and obviously right now the platform isn't quite ready, but we're going to be able to determine, you know, the weights, what they're collecting, how much is, you know, recyclable, you know, and close the loop completely. And then alongside that, we've got, as I said, the spectrometry, computer vision, satellite imagery, push notifications. So it's, you know, it's a really great.
Yeah, no, it is, I guess.
Yeah, so these two platforms, the mobile app and the analytical dashboard, and they, you know, combine to be extremely powerful, really.
Oh, very good.
And to hopefully allow a lot of good to be done.
Sounds like it. So for any aspiring or existing business owner, entrepreneur, organisation leader, what would be your number one tip to achieve fulfilment and success?
I would say having a clear roadmap. You know, what do you want to achieve and how you're going to achieve that? If they're not from the Isle of Man, I would definitely recommend having a think about the Isle of Man. We certainly are. I said earlier, we're incorporated in New Zealand, and it's been difficult because although Graham is from New Zealand, he's currently living in Japan. He travels a lot. Since he started, he's moved from Greece to Washington, DC, and now he's in Tokyo. So I think the Isle of Man itself is something that we are considering, just because there's really great support for small businesses and startups and entrepreneurs to come here.
A lot more it would open up for you, I'm sure, if that were the case. No,
exactly. But I just think if you are passionate about your idea and you know that you're onto something, stick with it. It's not easy. There's lots of bumps in the road. We've certainly found a lot of bumps in the road.
Ask any business owner.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I think people as well, I think the people that you meet and that want to help along the way, they're the diamonds, the partners, the people, the ambassadors, people that are spreading our word, because we've actually spread very organically and slowly. We haven't marketed ourselves too much because we don't want to be in a position, you kind of get one shot with these things.
Got to be right.
Before we're totally ready to really push it out globally.
Okay.
But we are global at the moment.
No,
actually, we're in 65 countries and
Wonderful.
we've got so many data points and stuff.
Oh, that's good. If you could go back and give your 18-year-old self one piece of advice, what would that be?
Oof. Don't ride yourself so hard. Be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
And believe in yourself, I think.
Okay.
Sometimes it's easy to doubt that what you think is right.
And would your 18-year-old self listen to you?
That's a good question. I was a bit of a rebel and a bit of a bitch, I think.
Oh, who wasn't when they were 18? Eh?
Yeah.
So, okay, so what do you do then to relax and keep your life in balance?
I love walking. Walk with the dogs all the time.
Railway lines?
Blessed. Railway line a lot,
I'm surprised I haven't
but love
met you.
the coast. I mean, I do love... Living in Crosby, that's the only downside. We are very high on the top of the hill, and we can see the sea, but I love being close to the ocean, so walking the beaches, and that's always handy with the app. Yeah. And I love to read, love music, and family time.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, that's lovely. And favourite trip that you've ever taken?
Oh my goodness. My favourite trip ever is it's crazy on lots of levels. I was invited by a fabulous friend of mine who is a photographer to trial the opening of a private island. So our whole family were invited, and we only had to cover the cost of a couple of meals a day. And we stayed in this amazing island off Singapore, slept in treetops. It was sort of like 6-star luxury, I guess.
Oh, my goodness.
We were given our own shoes, our own boats. They had massages for you every day. And it was like, like my husband and the family.
How did they get you to leave?
Exactly. We were there it was just after Christmas, and we were there for 10 days, and it was the trip of a lifetime.
Oh,
You'll
my
never
goodness.
get that back. The boys I only thought, oh my gosh, don't expect every holiday to be like this, boys, because that bar was set high.
Oh my goodness.
But you kind of realise
been
how
so
the
young.
other half live.
They've been so young.
Yeah, they were. But you realise how the other half live. But then while I was there, I actually had the opportunity to save somebody's life. And that was for real. So another guest was choking, and I performed the Heimlich manoeuvre. Being a teacher, I'd done some first aid.
Thank goodness.
And I managed to dislodge it. All the men were downstairs drinking. It was really early. I shouldn't say they were drinking, but it was breakfast. But they were downstairs, I'll just say, putting the world to rights is there. But one of them had come upstairs, and he was a really large American guy. And I think adrenaline kicks in. They say that, like, women have lifted cars and things, and I lifted this guy off his feet, and he was probably twice my size and about 4 times my weight. And I cracked 2 of his ribs doing the Heimlich manoeuvre, because I thought, you think you've got one shot, so if you're going to do something, do it well. Yeah. So, and there was just enough oxygen left to bring it out.
Thank goodness.
And
well done, you.
He sent me so many orchids. Then he found out my favourite flowers, and orchids just continued to arrive every year on the date.
Oh, how lovely.
So and
but you deserved your massage that day, I would say.
I did, yeah. I was very sore for a while.
Bet you were. Oh gosh.
After everything, the euphoria had sort of died down, and the fear. But it was nice to know, actually, that, because I sometimes, if it's something more minor, I may be more like girly and a bit hesitant or screamy about things, but this was like, he was purple and he dropped, and I was like, I hoisted him up, and so it was good to know I
memorable
didn't freeze.
On many counts.
Exactly. Saved a life, and the best holiday ever with the most luxury. Unexpected.
Gosh, well, Cath, we're getting near the end of our podcast now, but if you could just briefly tell me what's next after the Innovation Challenge. What's next for you?
Well, we really hope that Eyesea continues to grow and that the Innovation Challenge is a starting point. As I said before, whether we win or we don't win, we still count ourselves winners, because the conversations that we've had with people here on the island just shows that we hope there's going to be a lot of potential for us here on island and globally. And, you know, we'll have the dashboard ready so the analytics can be demonstrated and showed, which is going to be hopefully something that at some point, you know, might interest investors. I know they'll need to be strategic investors because we're sort of a not-for-profit, but I still think that there's a lot of companies that are looking for something, a good cause
for sure
to get behind. And obviously for our tech to be the best and for our platform to be the best, at some point we do need to pull up our big girl and boy pants and actually start talking about money and how to bring on investments.
Wonderful.
etc.
Yeah, that sounds really good. You mentioned you're a reader. What books do you like to read?
Oh gosh, all sorts. Weirdly, at the moment, I'm reading the Thursday Murder Club. Because
I love that.
Yeah, they're so good.
Did you hear that Celia Emery has just been cast in the role of Joyce?
Oh my gosh,
Because
I'm so excited.
Helen Mirren is going to be Elizabeth.
Do you know, I've read it.
Pierce Brosnan is going to be
wonderful.
I know, can't wait.
I can't wait either. And that's what triggered me. And my brother had said to me, look, you will. And I'm not
all four books are
massive fan
brilliant.
of Richard Osmond himself.
No, I wasn't. And I read the books, and I am now.
Love him.
Yeah.
So that was my very easy, sunny day kind of reading.
Any other podcasts you listen to?
That sounds really awkward, but I'm menopausal. I'm a lady of that age. I'm 52 at the moment, and my body and my brain have changed sort of quite a lot recently. So I'm listening to quite a few people that are, you know, going through and they have advice and things about that. So that's quite helpful to do, especially because, you know, obviously I'm in a family of boys. So,
You're in good company.
I'll say no more. I think all the female listeners of a certain age will be like, I get you, Kath, I get you.
Know what you mean. Yes, well, we can always reach out and ask you which podcast you listen to. Any favourite quote?
You can't manage what you can't measure. I do love that quote.
You can't manage what you can't measure.
Yeah, it's just very fitting for Eyesea, but actually it's sort of quite fitting for a lot of things as well.
It sure is. So where can people go to learn more about you, Eyesea, and the work that you're doing? Well,
it's eyesea.org, and it's I like the eye in your face and sea as in the waves in the ocean. I don't know. I'm actually, if anyone, it's not a studio, but I'm actually pointing to the eye and making wave shapes.
I see. Right.
And we have a little fish.
We'll put it in the show notes. Don't worry. It'll be just a click below.
Yeah, excellent. Much easier than my long-winded conversation.
No,
and I'm obviously I'm on LinkedIn, and Eyesea is on most of the social media platforms as well.
We will find you. Thank you so much for your time today and coming along to the studio. It's fascinating.
I just hope I remember to say everything that I wanted to say.
I think you did. I can't wait to hear more about it and how you, obviously, best of luck in the Innovation Challenge.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for listening if you made it this far.
Thanks. Thanks for listening this far. I hope you found this episode to be valuable. If so, I'd like to ask you for a small favour. Would you please go to Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star review, because that's one of the best ways for others to find the series, and please send a link to the podcast to 3 friends or colleagues who know they'll find it helpful. That way we can spread the word about how great a place the Isle of Man is to live and work, and help spread some positivity. Thanks again for tuning in and being part of our great community. I'll see you next time. Island Influencers is a fortnightly podcast. Make sure you don't miss the next episode by clicking the follow button on your podcast platform. A big thanks to the producer Catherine Watts from Social Cues and editor Martin Bamford at Bear Content, and thank you for listening.